It's the second best-selling album in the history of recorded music. It's a masterpiece of pure, unadulterated hard rock. But when you look at how it actually got made, it's a miracle it ever got finished. So today we're stripping the mythology off of AC/DC's Back in Black. We're looking at the brutal, miserable reality of recording it. You had crushing grief, wild weather, power outages, and a studio getting crashed by the local wildlife. So to understand the mood of these sessions, you have to look at the calendar. It's February of 1980. Bon Scott, he just died. He wasn't just the singer, he was the front man. He was the lyricist and the soul of AC/DC. Some would argue it's Angus, but at the time, Bon was extremely important to the band. Most bands would have taken at least a year off to grieve, but most would have probably just broken up. Malcolm and Angus Young, they didn't do that. After getting the blessing from Bon Scott's family, they hired Brian Johnson as the lead singer and frontman and pushed forward. They had a huge wave of momentum coming off the Highway to Hell album and tour, and they knew that if they stopped, the whole machine might just die with it. So in April of 1980, we're talking barely 2 months after burying their friend, they packed up their gear, they brought their producer Mutt Lange with them, and they flew to Compass Point Studios in Nassau in the Bahamas. On paper, recording an album in the Bahamas sounds like a vacation. I mean, in reality, it was closer to a nightmare. So when AC/DC arrived in the Bahamas, the island was getting hammered by a run of tropical storms. It wasn't sunny beaches and Mai Tais. It was pouring rain and howling wind, and the studio wasn't really built to handle this kind of weather. The power kept going out, rolling blackouts over and over. So imagine being Malcolm and Angus Young. You're locked into this perfect groove recording on a backing track, and suddenly the power in the whole building goes, it dies. The tape stops, the take, it's gone because they're dealing with analog tape. That didn't happen once, it happened way too often. They ended up recording in short, frantic bursts whenever the electricity actually stayed on. If the grief and the storms weren't enough, the local wildlife wanted in too, and this is sort of comical, but at one point mid-session, a crab wandered in from the beach and shuffled right across the studio floor into the drum booth. And Brian Johnson, he's told this story. He said the thing was clacking its claws like a pair of castanets. Everyone was cracking up. I mean, it's a small moment, but it tells you everything you need to know about the setup. This was a working studio on the beach, not some sealed off palace, and nature could basically stroll in whenever it felt like it. The band, they were staying in little concrete rooms, and their gear had been stuck in customs for days. It was hot, it was humid, and everyone was still quietly carrying the weight of losing Bon Scott. On top of the weather and the grief, they were working with Mutt Lange once again. Now, he produced Highway to Hell, and he was back on the board for Back in Black. Now, as most of us are probably aware of, Mutt Lange is a genius. He's a famous perfectionist. He doesn't care if you're tired, and he definitely doesn't care that there's a storm brewing outside. He made the band play the same parts over and over until they were microscopically perfect. Now think about this. For Brian Johnson, the pressure was enormous. I mean, he was the new guy. He's replacing a legend, and he's being pushed by a taskmaster producer to scream at the very top of his range in a hot, humid room with the lights flickering. But here's the magic of AC/DC. They didn't complain. I mean, these were working class guys from the pubs of Australia and the clubs of Newcastle, England. They put their heads down and they worked because that's what they always did. And they poured all of it, the grief, the frustration, the bad weather, the tension, straight onto the tape. So when they finally packed up and left the Bahamas, they'd caught lightning in a bottle. Back in Black wasn't just a tribute to Bon Scott. It was a statement of pure willpower. It proved that if the riffs are good enough and the work ethic is strong enough, you can make a masterpiece with the power cutting out and the rain coming down sideways. So I want to know your thoughts. Do you think those miserable conditions in the Bahamas and the death of Bon Scott actually drove the band and helped make Back in Black sound as aggressive as it does? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. And if you appreciate these behind the scenes stories and you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe and like button too. And check out my new book, Near Miss, which is available on Amazon. I put a link in the description down below. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all you guys watching and commenting and liking and subscribing. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.